What's up, guys? Man, we had to throw a little montage to our guy out there. Hopefully, he's feeling all right. The elephant in the room. I'm joined by my friend Jesse Koger of PlantTheSpear.com, and of course, my beautiful co-host Jen Santee, Jen022013 on Twitter, as you know her. What's up, guys? How we feeling tonight? Who's our starting quarterback? Who's it going to be?
I don't. Hey, man. I'm only like 45 minutes from Bank of America Stadium, so like, let me just start warming the old shoulder up because at this point, it could be anybody, man. Anybody's guess is as good as mine. Like, I there's a little bit of excitement for Brock Glenn just from the kind of the throw it all against the wall freshman type deal there, and he's mobile, and there's some excitement there. But anytime it's a championship game, you kind of like the veteran guy, and then it's just a toss up, man. It's this game it's turned out to be crazy. This season has taken so many turns now in the last couple of weeks, but hopefully we get it done, man. They say defense wins championships. We're gonna find out.
Well, if there's one thing that we have that's been consistent all year, it's a championship defense, especially in the secondary, especially in the second half of these games. The team has played, unreal. But I will say it was a lot more fun
Sorry.
when you're having the conversation about, oh well, it sure, maybe they should let Brock Glenn start because he sure he looked like an X factor when he got in there. Then knowing Tate Rodemaker's not available. That's a whole nother thing. Um, but look, guys, it is what it is. If Brock Glenn is the starter, he's looked pretty damn good when he's got in there. He's got a hell of a moxie. We've known it since he's got here. In winter drills, he was out there picking up fifth and sixth year linemen off the ground in conditioning training. Like just a leader from the time he stepped foot on campus, kind of in a different way than both Rodemaker and AJ Duffy. How are you feeling about it, Jen? Are you worried, or you pretty comfortable if Brock has to take over, or do you think it's all kind of overblown? We know the policy isn't to have this information out there, but we won't speak on who it was, but another one of these kind of media sources out there kind of stuck their foot in their mouth and reported on something, and there it is, the first question for Mike Norvell in North Carolina.
So I'm not on a panic train right now. I think right now I think they think it's going to be Tate starting. I do, and I think unless something changes where he doesn't clear that, then it'll be Brock. And right now I'm not panicking. I prefer to get to tomorrow before I start doing that. But Jaden Daniels has gone through the same process twice this year, and it wasn't overblown. It wasn't, and then he went out and beat Mississippi State, 51 to something. I mean, it was crazy. He was in the same protocol. It was the same instance, and he's actually done it twice. And, I think that college teams are very particular about these protocols, and rightfully so. And I think, I guess we'll see. Am I nervous about if it's going to be Brock? I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be rainy. I think either way, you're going to focus on the running game anyway. So I don't know. I'd prefer to panic tomorrow. I'm going to be like Scarlett O'Hara. I'm not going to think about that today. I'll think about that tomorrow. That's what I'm going to say.
Look, if there was anybody in the country that was going to have to go out there with a quarterback who's kind of young, and figure out a game plan that's going to be able to work, I think Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins can get it together and get a game plan for him. And Jen said it all when she brought up the running game. They're going to run, attack this running game like they have all year. They're not going to go away from it if it doesn't work early on. And they're going to test this Louisville defense. They're going to see, can y'all survive 4 quarters? And the same way thing with the offensive line and the waves they bring them at them from the defensive front. They're going to test their mettle, see if Louisville can handle the waves of death thrown at them, and just this line leaning on them. And Trey Benson, 230 pounds. They call him the Brick. That's his nickname. So you got the brick hammering on you for 4 quarters. It rares on teams. You saw it against Florida. They were negative yardage throughout the fourth quarter. Just absolute domination. I said on this show, I think it might have been you might have been on here last week, or if I'm not mistaken. But long story short, I picked us to beat the Gators 14-0 in the fourth quarter. It ended up being 10-0. Still though, just utter domination, and we've seen it all year. I don't see anything about Louisville that makes me think that should change. And even if it's not Obviously Jordan Travis isn't walking through that door, but even if we have to go down to Brock Glenn, I think he'll be able to bring something different. It's not the arm, kind of talent and razzle dazzle and gunslinger mentality that Tate Rodemaker has if he can stand in that pocket. But Brock Glenn just has that moxie and that ability to pull it and run, or come in for his very first play in a rivalry game and audible to a passing play and throw it down the field. So yeah, I'm fine with either quarterback. I don't think that's the story of the game. I think it comes down to running the ball, like Jen said, and the defense.
I mean, I really do. I really do. I think it comes down to running the ball. So for me, the panic, I mean, I get it. I get the panic. I really do. But I also think that we all knew that he was hit in the head. We all knew that they have these processes for a reason, and it's per the NCAA. This isn't something that is just Florida State, like cutting him off and doing these types of things. This is that is a rule. And I still don't, hey, again, he may not start, who knows? And maybe he's not 100 when, game time rolls around, but I don't know. I don't know all the panic was necessary, because to me, again, Brock comes in, it's going to be a run game situation. I think it was going to be a run game situation with Tate, to be honest, because of the weather.
Yeah, that's a good comment that somebody put up, saying that they thought the rain could benefit the FSU receivers. But moving past the quarterback, we had to talk about it, the elephant in the room there. It is what it is. I think I'm leaning Brock, Jen's leaning Tate, but we'll see if Tate passes protocol, get him up there and let's have him start. That'd be great. But what do you think besides that? What the kind of key to the game is, up against Louisville tomorrow?
Well, let me touch on one thing real quick, but because this is apparently everybody's trying to go, say some crazy stuff on Twitter and things like that. This is not Mike Norvell's decision. He is not a doctor. He doesn't pretend to be a doctor.
Absolutely.
Everybody's trying to give him the business about putting him back in the game. Listen, I've been, this is not my full-time job. I've worked in the medical field for 12 years now. These guys make a lot of money and they're really good at what they do. This is not Norvell's decision. He's going to trust what they say. That's who they're going to roll with. And, I will just say the one thing about Brock, we haven't seen him a whole lot. So you have maybe a little element of surprise there. I think screens were going to be a big part of this game anyway, because of that Louisville front seven, and with, our offensive line kind of struggling a little bit lately against really good defensive lines. So that was probably going to be part of the game plan anyway. So if you're dialing up some easy throws, I mean, we expect Brock can probably make those too. And if you remember, I know it's North Alabama and everybody can say that it's a FCS team, but that one pass he threw to Vandrevius up the seam was a dart. It was a beautiful pass. So, I'm there's a little excitement inside of me, to see if Brock does get the keys tomorrow, what he can do. But, when you talk about keys to this one, I think that it falls right into what I was just talking about with that front seven for Florida State's offense. You have to be able to block these guys. I mean, I think they pressured Devin Leary for Kentucky around 46% of his dropbacks. They were in the backfield a lot. The other thing that I noticed today when I was kind of running through some numbers, Florida State against the two best rushing defenses that they played this season, Miami, who's 13th, and Clemson, I believe, is 26th. They rushed for 57 yards and 22 yards, both around less than 2 yards a carry. Louisville's is 13th. So Florida State's going to have to find some ways to move the ball. I don't think you can have a game where you rush for less than 100 yards and Florida State comes out winning. I think you got to find a way to stay ahead of the chains, no matter who's the quarterback, because against Florida, I believe their average third and to-go distance was 10.4 yards. You just got to stay ahead of the chains against a Louisville team that is very balanced. When you talk about the best teams that they played, LSU, great offense, not really good defense. Clemson, great defense, terrible offense. Louisville is not elite on either side, but they're good on both sides. I think they're 20 and 27th or something. So it's a balanced team. So you're going to have to come to play, and they're going to have to be able to move the ball on the ground for these young quarterbacks.
No doubt. Jawar Jordan is he's a real weapon. You're talking about 167 carries for 1,076 yards, 6.4 average. They're going to have some success early, like we've talked about with a lot of these teams running the ball. They're going to have some stuff schemed up. Jeff Brom is, very similar to Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell's kind of from Big Ten country. He lit up those guys over there in the Big Ten for year after year at Purdue with lesser players. He comes over to Louisville, brings in some guys. They already had some guys in place, and you're not a 1,000 rusher for nothing in the ACC. Even if they don't have the toughest schedule in the world, Jack Plummer doesn't scare you to death, but if you don't play your assignments, if your linebackers, aren't, playing their assignments and hitting the right gaps, you'll get tore up by him. The guy has 3,000 yards. He's done for 21 touchdowns. He does have 11 picks. The FSU secondary and these linebackers have been in position a ton this year, but one thing they haven't done a whole lot of is come down with some balls. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game where you just see the defense step up and make some of those plays to really help the offense and a backup or even a third string quarterback in that situation. And we can let Jen go with this one first. Is there anybody on the defense in particular you think that really matches up against Louisville, or that you're just expecting to have a big game in general?
Well, I think Jared Verse, number one, obviously. I also think our corners are going to have a big night. I'm sorry. If they try and throw that ball, please look for that, because they are huge compared to, Louisville has good wide receivers, obviously, but these corners are way different than anything Louisville has seen this year. Their top team that they beat obviously was Notre Dame. And when you compare those two, it's not even close. Florida State's looking at right now having the best defensive backs, best corners. They are playing outrageous right now. And I know we don't see it. I know our fans don't see it, but they grade a whole lot different than what we see with our eyeballs. And no matter what anybody wants to say, it's, that's the matchup I'm looking for. But again, is the weather going to keep Louisville on that ground game? Because that does concern me. So let's think about that. If we're going to talk about their Louisville's running backs, who are actually pretty good. They're not, like as good as we think ours are, but
Jamar Jordan, he's the real deal.
He is. He's very good. But how are we going to stop him? What are your thoughts on them stopping them then? Because I think they can. I'm just I don't know. I think I'm worried about their hype coming off of that loss to Kentucky. That's the one thing that does worry me, because but again, I look at these teams that lost to Kentucky, and Kentucky is not bad. I'm not going there. But Pitt is terrible. Yeah. And they didn't just lose to Pitt.
Yeah, let's not get too far on a tangent, but I agree with you. You got to be able 100%. You got to be able to run the ball against these guys, and you got to be able
to. That's where I'm going, and you have to stop the run, because with this weather is what concerns me. Is I don't know that Plummer is going to be throwing a whole lot.
Yeah, for sure. You've got to be able to stop the run. As far as who I think the big the main culprits are going to be being able to stop that run. I don't think we've had any issues with the line all year, and Kalen DeLoach has been playing out of his mind. I think the question is Tatum to Bethune 100%. Is he going to be there?
Yeah.
Like he has been earlier in the year. DJ Lundy, he'll probably get a lot of burn in this game. If I had a question about playing the run, it's going to be when the safeties have to play the run. I was pretty disappointed in how Conrad Hussey played the run a few times in the game against Miami, and then again in the games against Florida. So we'll see how many snaps he gets. But what do you think, man? What do you think we will be able to stop their run, or do you think they're going to get some? I feel like they're going to get 100, 150 yards no matter what we do. But just when it comes down to late in the game, we got to be able to stop them, and I think we'll be able to.
I'm sorry, one more thing. I didn't mean to forget this, but Louisville's linebackers are a weakness for them.
No doubt.
Big time. So anyway, that's all I was going to say.
No, I'm with Jen. I think that really one of the keys on defense for Florida State is going to be their secondary, because when you look at Plummer, he's really not a guy that's going to scramble a whole lot. He's kind of a stand back there passer. And I will say this too. I live about 45 minutes from Bank of America Stadium. It's not currently raining right now. And I used to live down by Florida. We don't get quite the Florida monsoons that you guys get down there. So I expect it to be normally here. You'll get a steady light rain. So I don't think it'll be like a torrential downpour. I obviously think things will be wet. The conditions will be wet, so you'll skew towards the running game. But I think you might be able to throw the ball a little bit in this. But I think with this one, you have an experienced quarterback, and I looked this up earlier. So Plummer has played 2,466 snaps in college. Tate has played 339, and Florida State has played 20. Or Brock Glenn has played 21. So the experience is unreal there. But when you look at Plummer, I think the interceptions are what stands out. And then he also has 7 fumbles on the year. And that was something that happened against Kentucky when he did scramble. He fumbled. He kind of carries it like that loaf of bread, like they say.
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, I think that coverage sacks are going to be key in this one because he's actually, when you look at his pressure numbers, his numbers aren't bad against pressure. So I think for Florida State, if they're, like Jim was saying, if your corners can kind of lock up these receivers long enough to allow that defensive line to get some coverage sacks, I think that's going to be huge for stopping them. And I do think you want to force them to throw the ball to beat you. I think that's what you're going to want. You're going to load the box against them and force them to try and throw the ball. The one thing I did notice is, you're going to have to really play discipline in your secondary because the time that I think it was Notre Dame, they ran for they held them to 20 yards rushing or something crazy like that, 50 yards rushing, but they threw for a lot of yards. And then Pitt held Louisville to 80 yards rushing, but they threw for 350 yards. So it's hard to take away both against this team, but I feel like if you can force them to throw, that's going to give Florida State the best chance to win because Plummer is mistake prone. He has been responsible for 18 turnovers this year. And if you look at the games, their biggest win was Notre Dame. They forced 5 turnovers in that game. Both of their losses, Kentucky and Pitt, Louisville had 3 turnovers in that game. Mm-hmm. So it almost really boils down into this one. If you win the turnover battle, you have a really good chance of winning this game.
Which I do like that for Florida State because obviously
they have been excellent.
Yeah, knock on wood. God, if I had some salt, I'd throw it over my shoulder right now. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, yeah. So I think that does equal good for them because Louisville they have been turnover prone. They really have.
And like you guys are saying, if you can force them to drop back and pass, if you can get them in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 and longer, eventually Jared Verse, Patrick Payton, these guys are going to get home. Braden Fisk is going to find his way through the middle, and he's going to get home, and they're going to make a play that's going to change this thing. And getting back to talking about the quarters, Kev says our cornerbacks will get the job done. Like Jen talked about, that's a big key point in this game. Yeah. And I agree 100%. And you look over at their cornerbacks, you got Jarvis Brownlee. He's been a big player for them, more so this year than the year before. But, I've seen him chirping up a little bit on the timelines.
Oh, he has.
But look, here's the thing. Johnny Wilson made him his son on live national TV last year. We get the big win with Tate Murdermaker coming in down. Okay, so he's been studying Johnny Wilson all year. He's all hyped up. He's going to come in and get his revenge, but it's also
and then let's
he's
see
got
what
to
he
deal
does with
Keon
Coleman.
Coleman.
Let me tell you something.
Bell.
Brownlee cannot cover Keon Coleman. That's not even close. I'm sorry, but again, I don't mean to take anything over, but I'm not trying to be mean to this team. But if we knew for sure Tate was starting 100%, I would be all in saying I am not concerned. Weather's great. As long as Brownlee's your starting DB, I have no concerns with our wide receivers having a great night. None.
Yeah.
Only question is who's throwing
burnt
it to
toast Brownlee.
I'm over that conversation real quick.
You can study up and you can prepare and you can get hyped up all you want. I could go to the gym for 6 months, go get in the ring with Mike Tyson. He's still going to lay me out flat in 10 seconds. Yeah. That's the thing about, I like what Jen says about if you have Tate in the game, you've seen that mismatch there. Yep. And Tate has the arm to take advantage of it. That's what makes you feel so good in this game because when you look at that defense, the secondary is the glaring weakness, and that's how you want to attack them. So, I think that's why you want Tate in there, the more pure passer. But, I think Brock Glenn can make some throws, but you like to have a guy who has to feel a little confident going against Louisville. You've already kind of beat him through the air one time before. And, him and Johnny seem to have that connection. Practice reports this week said that Tate and Johnny they look like old school Tate and Johnny again. So if he plays, that makes you a little excited, but we'll just have to see if he's got to play or not.
Yeah, I just see Jaheim Bell streaking up the middle, Johnny Wilson on those big plays.
Yeah, and that's
Keon
Coleman
another great is going to go off for sure. There's no doubt. What was that, Jen?
I was going to say that's another great point because Tate and Jaheim were, high school teammates. Like if Tate was in the game, like I would be, oh my God, I had no concerns at all. Like I was like, oh my, I really thought Florida State would win by maybe 12. I would have said 12 to 14 to be real.
Yeah. And I just want
to, this isn't a homer pick either.
Yeah, and I just want to address this real quick. Mike Bartz had the comment. I heard Tate is a game time decision while we got everybody in here before we get into the calls. Yes, Tate is a game time decision. I don't think we'd ever heard anything about this unless,
Nope.
somebody hadn't come out and kind of spoke on a podcast and insinuated that Rodemaker hadn't been at practice. Well, the first question ends up being about Tate Rodemaker, and we find out that Brock Glenn has took the majority of the snaps with the first team this week. They have been easy with Rodemaker. He had shown some symptoms. But look, guys, if he clears concussion protocol in the morning, chances are he's going to start just like he would have the whole time, and we'd have never known him better. But it is what it is. This is why they have the injury rules that they have in place. I wouldn't be surprised if next year they're a little bit more strict or going into the playoff if they're more strict about how they allow the media or what they allow the media to say, or because this is just kind of ridiculous that they ever had to have this conversation. It's
so. By the way,
it is what it is. But
give
yes,
the little
if he's
guys
healthy,
the credentials.
he will play. Yeah, let's get some Plant the Spear and Renegade Report on the sidelines over there.
So
it won't be long.
By the way, I have heard that Jordan went through the same protocol during the year.
Oh yeah, they all go. It's something that happens week to week. It just so happens there's only 10 teams playing this weekend. Yada yada, and
look,
that's why
it's a story. It's a story. If you get it, I totally understand that. But
they
again,
had a 50-50 chance of being right. So
and I think George is right too. I think George brings up a good point that if it hadn't have been leaked, the information hadn't have been leaked, I don't think we would have never heard about it. Nobody would have ever heard the results. You'd have just seen who. Now, if Brock Glenn would have started on Saturday, you'd have been like, hold up, what's going on here? But let me bring up one point before I know you got to get some callers here, man. Here's what's interesting to me too. And this has actually moved a little bit the other way. It was a lot more heavy yesterday when we did our preview show. Man, there's a lot of people that don't believe in Florida State anymore. When you look at the money on this, 74% of the total money is on Louisville. Yep. And so there's a lot of people that are thinking they're going to win, and 94% of the people took the under, so they're expecting a defensive battle. But I think yesterday when I checked, it was 91% of the money was on Louisville. I mean,
but wasn't that also because the line was so high when it first opened at 6.5? I think
this was when I checked yesterday. It was at 2.5, and it was still 91%. It's moved a little bit since then.
It's dropped to 1.5 now.
Yeah, it's 1.5 now, and I think the lines.
Now that's the money line. High. That's the money line bet that I was reading, not the spread. So that's just for Louisville to win straight up. So there's a lot of people that are picking Louisville in this one.
Yeah, look. But
I think ESPN is telling them to, right? Because in one hand, I don't mean to cut anybody off, but in one hand, they're saying, well, if Florida State beats Louisville, what does that mean? They still shouldn't be in because that's a weak team. And on the other hand, they're picking Louisville because Louisville's defense is great and their offense is great. So which one is it? If they beat Louisville, are they super good? Or if they lose to Louisville, would you not be surprised? I don't understand this. So if they beat them, they're an easy team. If they lose to them, Louisville's amazing and Florida State sucks. So again, I don't know about that.
It's just how they treat us.
Yeah.
It's always been that way, though. It's weird.
It really has. Again, I go back to 2014, game control. That was invented to keep Florida State out, and nobody can tell me anything different. And in 2013, you won too much. You won by too much. You have never had adversity, so you're not very good.
Right. And then game control went away for 6 years, and it made it come back faster
and now
than Miami did.
Yep.
Yeah, it's constantly like that. It's just it's part of being a Florida State fan. You get used to it. Some people will swear it's not there, but they told them, to not bet on Florida State. If I was a betting man on Florida State, I would go, put a bunch of money on it, but I just don't bet on Florida State. I feel like it's bad juju during the season.
Oh, you never bet on your team ever.
I'd make one bet with a friend on the Florida game every year, and it seems like every time I make that, it pays up.
Did they pay you?
Oh yeah, always. No, we're not talking about random people on Twitter. It'll be an actual fringe. But one other good thing in the news, we actually talked about this. Me and Jay did on our Tuesday show. Kai Bates makes it official. He commits to the Florida State Seminoles, another top 100 recruit in the nation, cornerback out of, I believe, Orlando, Florida. Man, we move up. I believe we're at like 293 or 294 in the 247 composite. It won't be long. We'll be in that 300-point range. But man, you talk about a DB class there's no argument for any of it. There can't be. If you know another school that has an argument for the number one DB class, I don't know what it is. When you have Kai Bates, Ricky Knight, Charles Lester, KJ Bolden, and I'm leaving one off.
Ricky Knight.
Jamari Howard. Yeah, Ricky Knight.
Did you say Ricky Knight?
Yep. But yeah, you're talking about 5 4-stars. 2 of them are 3 4-stars and 2 5-stars. Really an unbelievable class. What did you think about Kai Bates pulling the trigger, Jesse?
Man, I'm like, here's the thing. At the end of the day, whatever happens around this program, I feel like you just have to trust Mike Norvell. First off, he goes out and he hires Alex Atkins, and you saw what he did with offensive line recruiting. Then you go out and you get Patrick Surtain, and man, I mean,
what a freaking hire, dude!
Like that is 2 of the biggest home run hires probably in the last 5 years that you can think of as an assistant. And what they have done on the trail with the secondary class is unreal, man. And it's really going to put DBU back on the map, as if it's not already. But man, you just got, and we still forget about some of the guys. Azaria Thomas, that's still a young guy that hasn't had a lot of playing time yet. You know, that's still here. So you're going to have time for these guys to develop, but you're going to have guys that can contribute right away. I like that he's from Orlando, so he's an in-state guy close to home. That makes him easier to hang on to the end. And man, this is just, it's unreal to see like the momentum around this team and this program right now. And with all the recruiting success they've had, and like now you're to the point where everyone likes to have the conversation about portal players versus high school and all that stuff. To me, I love the way Mike Norvell manages this roster, kind of like an NFL roster. You know, he goes out and they had to use the portal initially and to supplement the high school recruiting. But now that they've got a top 3 class potentially going to make a run at the number 1 class, now you can pick and choose because you're also a portal destination, because you're probably going to put 6-8 portal players in the NFL this year too. So everybody's going to want in. So now you mix that talent and you can just accent it with the pieces that you can get out of the portal. So man, I'm just so excited. High school recruiting is rolling. I think if they get this win tomorrow, it's only going to keep going. And man, I'm just excited to have him in the class. And what an elite DB class this has turned out to be. So shout out to Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, man,
what a home run hire.
Top 5 unit on the field, the number 1 recruiting class by a mile as far as DB goes. You just couldn't ask for a better hire than Pat. It's unreal.
I will tell anybody, if you ever want to listen to Menace to Sports with Zach Smith, right? He goes over some some stuff about the defensive backs coach with Patrick Surtain, that he wanted Urban to hire him. It's a whole story. You've got to listen to it. Maybe I'll clip it. I'll post it. But it's a really interesting conversation that he has, because it's right after KJ announces that he's going to go to Florida State, because obviously Ohio State was in the mix. His cousin he is their defensive backs coach and did not go to Ohio State. So it's a whole conversation there. If anybody ever wants to listen to it, Menace to Sports, Zach Smith, amazing. Hit it up. It's one of my go-tos in the morning.
And George, the last thing I will say about this DB class, man, is one other thing that I'm excited about is if you can land this many top-level guys in the class, you know they're not scared of competition, because you haven't seen anybody run from that competition. Of course, you know, they had to make some room for some extra guys, and they parted ways with one of the DB commits. But at the same time, man, like, to have this many guys at this high level, knowing they're going to have to come in and compete and they're ready for that, that's really exciting, because once you get to that competitive depth level, again, man, that you are in the position now where you're trying to reach that Georgia, Alabama, and like Clemson level, Ohio State level depth, that championship level depth. And this is how you do it. When you get that many guys to come in one class and aren't scared to compete, that's good stuff.
Hey, and they know it, man. I can't remember the exact quote. It might have been Kai Bates or one of these other ones, Jamari Howard. But yeah, they made one of those. They know the deal.
Right.
Iron sharpens iron, and they're coming in there to battle it out. Nobody's scared of that competition, and I'm glad you pointed that out. And as far as what Jim was talking about, yeah, Patrick Surtain, he is like just globally respected. Maybe not
Yeah.
globally, but universally respected. Whether it's high school coaches, college coaches, guys in the NFL who have dealt with his son or him during his playing career. He's just one of those guys that just knows ball, and he's an absolute alpha. But before we get too late into the night, we've been promised these guys were going to do the call-in show. So we're going to throw the number up on the screen and start taking folks' calls. Get your calls in here, and we'll get your call up here, and we'll answer it. If you got a take, you can get your take off. If you got a question for either me, Jesse, or Jen, you can get that off your mind too. And we'll do our best to get you up there as quick as we can. But yeah, man, I can't wait to just get out there and see this thing played. We've been talking about it. It feels like we've been talking about this matchup even like for months before it became official with Louisville.
Yeah, then it became
like
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy that you kind of the way things played out too. I mean, if you think about it, this is a matchup. What, last year even this would not have happened because you would have been locked behind them, in the standings. And let's see who's the highest place. We probably would have ended up playing Georgia Tech in the ACC championship because they're the highest right now, the highest ranked or coastal team. So I like the new divisions, man, or the new thing with no divisions. I think this is what worked out best. Now, of course, it'd have been nice if Louisville would have been a top 10 team and not lost last week. But
yeah,
it is cool though to see this, that now you get that, because honestly, let's face it, like them still being number 14 is going to help you a lot more than beating a 6-6 Georgia Tech team would have done.
Well, look at the rankings. You've got 4 ACC teams ranked, and they're all Atlantic teams.
Yep.
And all because they didn't all 4 play each other like in back-to-back weeks and completely demolish each other.
That's always been how
NC
it is.
State 9-3. Well, exactly. That's the point.
Yeah.
And now it isn't anymore. And you finally see it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because for all those years, you
Look
had
at the Big
5
Ten.
of the top 6 player teams in the entire conference on one side, all just eating each other up. But we did not get any respect from that. It's, you're in the lowly ACC. You're no good. But meanwhile, you've got 4 and 5 top 40 teams year in and year out that you're just grinding up against. And excuse me for the sexual theme there, not grinding up against. Let's see here, grinding. I'm just going to stop talking. What do y'all guys have to say about that? ACC Atlantic, but yeah, your top teams all on one side. But yeah,
Miami played in the
Coastal.
Coastal.
Get their respect finally,
and they still couldn't win it.
20 years in the Coastal, Miami still made the ACC championship game once.
One time.
And had to kick a field goal down 30.
What was that final on that one? 36-3 or something? Oh my gosh.
A lot.
It was 33-3, I think. I'm not for sure.
Yeah. I want to say they like bowed out of one for like self-cause or something. Because they knew they were going to get destroyed one year due to some kind of trouble they got in with the NCAA. They preemptively
bowed out of the ACC championship game. I don't think they actually qualified for it. They only qualified for it once, I believe. They bowed out of it for the fact that they were going to be bowl ineligible anyway. And so I think in like September, October, they were like, oh, we won't go to the ACC championship game. And then everybody just trolled him and was like, oh no, oh no, we'll miss you.
Smooth Criminal is correct. The ACC does have the most bowl teams this year.
Yes,
they do. They 100% do. Yep.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while. You get 11.
They do have a winning record against the SEC and I believe the Big Ten as well.
Yeah, what is it? 6-4 against the SEC, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
Look, I'm not sitting here like, you know me, I am not an ACC champion person. Like those teams can all go kick rocks as far as I can. I don't care. I'm not an SEC weirdo. I'm not going to chant the ACC at a game. I mean, that is some cult stuff. That is not up to me. But yeah, I really don't understand that. And so I think when I was like responding on Twitter, it's like, okay, this whole conversation with an undefeated ACC team never happened with Clemson. Not one time. Yeah. Not one time. I'm tired of it. It's just.
That's a great point. I was going to ask you that next because we brought that up on our live show we did the other day. Is if you flip flop Florida State and Clemson,
They
we
wouldn't say
wouldn't be
shit.
having this conversation.
No.
I don't get it.
And also, I'm waiting on Kurt to respond to me because he's like, well, it's because Jordan Travis is out, which is a lie. He started that conversation that Saturday morning that Jordan was hurt. And George, we said that on our show that day when Jordan got hurt. They were doing that on game day. So that's a lie. They were starting this argument. It doesn't have to do with Jordan Travis being hurt. It has to do with the way they started it that Saturday morning. So if you guys still want to cry on national TV about Florida State fans being mean to you, you did it to yourselves. I'm sorry.
Yeah, one thing I will say real quick, and I know we got to move on, but the one thing I will say to that too is I felt like the swap to number 5 was coming originally because, you're down 13 up into an FCS team. Washington had won some ranked games. Now, they weren't in every game close. But the thing I have to say with the injury, the reason why it's kind of I don't want to cuss on your show, but it's a BS narrative. It's a bullshit narrative. You know what I mean? Is the fact that it seemed like in 1 week where you asked a backup quarterback to go on the road in front of 90,000 people at night and win a game against a rival, everybody saw that game and went, Florida State doesn't deserve to be in the top. Everybody thought it was fine that they were in the top 4 when Jordan was the quarterback. Mm-hmm. So you can't tell me that the injury wasn't a narrative. And what I find interesting about that is, so what happens if the very first play after you put Alabama in or whatever, Milroe goes out and blows an ACL out or something?
They benched him in the middle of the damn season. Like, it's so ridiculous. And even with Milroe, I mean, it took a miracle. I'm talking about a miracle of a 31-yard pass on 4th and 31 with time running out for them to even stay with one loss. And meanwhile, they're like, oh, well, Florida State, did you see them against Florida? They only covered with 2 or 3 points to spare.
Well,
what was the Auburn team that got dusted by New Mexico State the week before?
And paid the team $2 million to come do it.
The machine that is New Mexico State. That's probably about to get smoked by Liberty in their conference championship game. Or I think that was today.
How I got Matt Berry to respond to me, and it's because I said to him, I was like, okay, we're going to take Alabama out of this. I'm taking Alabama out. I think Alabama loses to Georgia. I'm sorry, I don't know where all this hype comes from. I really don't. I saw Alabama struggle with USF, by the way. Yeah, everybody wants to bring up Boston College, but where is the outrage? Yeah, thank you. Over Alabama with USF. I mean, gross. That is gross. That's worse than Boston College. I don't care anyway. That was at Alabama. That wasn't even at USF, was it?
Yeah, and taking it back to that same weekend, Washington, needed, whatever. It wasn't anything special.
Washington struggled every week.
Over Washington State in a 5-7 team, something like that. 5-6 team when they played.
I'm old enough to remember Washington versus Stanford.
And just so you guys know, the lines are open. You guys can call in if you want, or you can text in, put your question in the comments. Any questions, takes you have while we're on here for the next 20-25 minutes, get them in. Besides that, we're just going to keep talking FSU football with our friends Plant the Spear and Jen Santee 1890 on Twitter.
What I was saying is how I got him to respond was okay, so here's the deal. Let's take Alabama out, right? We're going to take Alabama out because I do think they lose to Georgia. That's 2 losses. Nobody cares. You're out. But how do you sit there and look at Florida State? Should they beat Louisville? This only means if they beat Louisville, right? How do you say they deserve to be out because of their strength of schedule? And then, hang on, I'm going to get there. And then count Ohio State's win over Notre Dame. How are we doing that?
Yeah, and I think the thing is, too, I think Georgia wins. I think the animosity there is the fact that, and my brother's a Georgia fan, so we've had this conversation a good number of times this week. He's asking me, who do you got in this one? I think their nervousness is that Saban has owned them in SEC championship games. He's 3-1 against Kirby. They're 2-0 in SEC championships. And they've beat them pretty good, but I think Georgia's just a better team. And to me, I'm fine with Georgia winning that game because I think it clears Alabama out of the conversation. That's a second loss for them. That also diminishes Texas's best loss now a little bit too. I wouldn't be sad if Washington won tonight. I think Oregon wins, but I think then you're sweeping, and I'm not calling the teams trash. It's just figuratively. You're sweeping the trash out of the street. You know what I mean? To clear the path for Florida State to make it in, even though it shouldn't be an argument. How do you put out a graphic and you say, well, nightmare scenario, if Florida State beats Louisville close? Bullshit, man. If they beat
it's
them,
not,
period,
that's not
that's
the
a top
nightmare
15
scenario.
win.
And by
It's a
the
bunch of
way,
bullshit.
so I would like to see what Vegas has Washington up against Georgia, because that's been their argument. And that's the other thing I was trying to ask them. I said, okay, so with Washington's defense, because
steamrolled.
By the way, what team that they want to be in against Georgia is not going to not be favored? Like, Georgia's going to be favored against everybody they play, by the way.
Yeah.
So what is it? It's only acceptable if you can be favored by 10, by 7, by 14. What is the limit that they want us to use? Because this is ESPN getting clicks. Florida State is eyeballs. They are a national team. And the moment you start bad-mouthing them, they get clicks. ESPN's going down the drain. We know this. Owned by Disney. Disney's losing money. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to say this, but that's exactly why they're doing what they're doing. Sorry.
Yeah, look, somebody had a good comment right there. The nightmare scenario is no SEC in the playoffs, which we need. Man. We need Alabama to beat Georgia, and then everybody else to go undefeated for that to happen.
They'll put Alabama in. I promise you that. I promise.
Yeah,
I promise.
They probably will, but that's the only chance you have at it, and I'd love it. I'd be all about it. I think everything that's said and how all the rankings and everything, it's all conjecture and it's all a bunch of BS until after whatever happens tomorrow. When that happens, if you end up with 4 undefeateds, that's what you got for your 4 teams in. Now, if you end up with 3 and a bunch of one losses, that's where we come down, that's where we find out what do they value. If you end up with Georgia loses to Bama and you have Georgia and Bama both with 1 loss, and you have Ohio State or you have Oregon with 1 loss if they can win, or Washington win, there's just a million scenarios. But if Florida State wins out, they're in. There's I don't know. They'd have to cancel the game if Florida State went undefeated and they didn't put them in. They're just not going to do it. I refuse to believe it.
I agree, man. I will say this too, though. Like, how fun is it to be this pissed off in the first weekend of December? Like, this is what we wanted for so long, though. Like, we wanted to be mad at the committee. We wanted to be mad at the talking heads and everything, because at the end of the day, we're back in the conversation. And we're about to compete for an ACC championship. And I will say this, man, like, no matter what happens in the playoffs, I know the season expectations had rocket fuel dumped on them when they beat LSU the way they did. But I just want people to understand from me personally, from my opinion, the number one goal for this team this year was to win the ACC championship. And you have that opportunity tomorrow. So whatever happens down the road, man, that's house money. You're playing with house money at that point. But if you can win the conference, you beat all your rivals. You had an undefeated season. Even then, if you win the ACC, you're still going to an Orange Bowl. I mean, yeah, you're pissed off if you don't make the playoffs. But, man, let's not sell short if they win tomorrow, what this means for this program, too.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. You go 13-0. It's only the 4th time, that you've had this many games and been able to go to undefeated. So the 4th time in every year, 12-0 in history. So it's amazing. And we got a question in the comments there. My question is, do you think we beat a good Louisville team without a proven question?
Yes.
Or a proven quarterback? And here's my question to you, Jerry. Have you ever heard of Jack Plummer before this year? Before Louisville had nobody on their schedule and made it just 9-0, 10-0, 11-0. Look, Tate Rodemaker's the first guy Norvell ever recruited. So if you want to be like, look, he had to get who he had to get in that transition class. Okay, there's one thing. You can say that. But as far as Brock Glenn, you're talking about a blue chip recruit that he brought in last year from Ohio State. And yeah, you're talking about, a stud quarterback, and he's a great quarterback. And we got a caller here calling in, Chris Frazier of Spear Addicts. What's going on, man? You got a question for us?
I ain't trying to be a dickhead. I got no question. But y'all know me. I ain't got no questions. I just got a lot of comments.
All right, well, let's shoot that take off. Let's get a hot take right here, fresh from my man from Spear Addicts. Chris Frazier.
So first and foremost, everybody that's tripping out over Tate Rodemaker, just chill out just for a second. Pay attention to what's been going on throughout week 3 to 6. Jordan was on protocol 3 weeks in a row. It's just the fact that what y'all know who released the information. I'm not gonna sit here and just say their name as bad as I want to because I'll say it on my show. But it's simple. Only because he's in protocol doesn't mean that he's just automatically not going to play. If he wasn't going to play, if it was just a guarantee, he wouldn't travel with the team. You'd see A.J. Duffy taking a lot more. Yes, I just said A.J. Duffy would be taking a lot more snaps. There's a reason why you saw the majority of the number one snaps going through Brock Glenn, because they still, presume that Brock is going to be your backup. But let him get as many first-round snaps as possible, first-team snaps as possible. They did the same thing with Tate Rodemaker through week 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Whenever the week came up, they did the same thing with Tate Rodemaker. He was taking more first-team snaps than Jordan Travis was. Take it from someone that got to see it. So it's to prepare those that need the preparation. It has nothing to do with, they let him take more of the snaps because they're expecting him to start. No. It's to get him ready in case he comes in, period, whether he starts or whether he comes in after. Next step. Louisville is a above average football team. Everybody wants to talk about that they're equal on each side. They're good on the defense. They're good on the offense. They're not great on either. I can agree with that. But I don't say they're good. I say they're above average. The reason I say they're barely above average is because of who they've played. Everybody wants to use Florida State's schedule against them. Everybody wants to say that their schedule's this and their schedule's that, and this team wasn't this and that team wasn't that. But every other team that we look at, whether it's who Florida State plays, whether it's the team that's in the playoffs, doesn't matter which other team it is, we don't care about their strength of schedule. All we care about is that they've won. Washington being the main one that I'm talking about, Oregon's the second one. If you look at either one of those teams on who they beat, and so
same thing. Same thing as Florida State's nothing special. There's no difference there that they make out. It's like, okay, you're casting these stones on us, but like you're saying, okay, well let's look up your skirt. I don't see anything different.
I mean,
right. And in comparisons, when you look at here's what's going to win the football game for Florida State: playmakers. It's as simple as that. Kalen DeLoach on defense will be your defensive player, most likely. Your offensive player is probably going to be Trey Benson, most likely. The same way that you just beat Florida, because I'm going to tell everybody right now, it might not be a popular opinion, Florida's defense is better than Louisville's, especially when it comes to the secondary and the linebacker position. I don't care
100.
if who wants to argue that. We'll argue it all day long. The reason that Louisville is ranked as high as they are offensively or defensively is due to the opponents that they've played. The moment that they go play an average, I'm not calling them trash, calling them average because that's what they are. They go and play a Kentucky team. Okay, this is why the SEC can sit here and say that they reign superior over the ACC, because damn near every other ACC team that they play, they win. But when they play Florida State, I don't know, LSU, Florida, both played us this year. What happened to them? Oh, but we had Jordan Travis, right? I don't care who the quarterback is in those games, to be completely honest. Maybe LSU, it's closer. I still think that the amount of playmakers that Florida State has, it doesn't change the perspective of how the game ends up being won. Because if you look at it, what is it that keeps winning these games in the second half? I don't know. We're only allowing 7 to 10 points in the entire second half on defense. When you can shut a team down for the majority in the second half, you're more than likely going to win, unless they can put up 40 against you in the first half. And that just isn't a scenario that's going to be likely for anybody, especially a Louisville team. So, to me, it's kind of ironic that everybody wants to use, well, if Alabama beats Georgia, they deserve to be in. So they can jump from 8 to at least by bare minimum 4. That's not how this works. It didn't work for any other team that way in previous years. It's not going to work for them this year. If Alabama wins, great for Alabama. Great for them. They need it, because everybody's wondering if they're going to come back. Are they ever going to be what they once were? We have no idea. No one has any idea. So, for me, it's simple. Florida State wins, they're in, and it's not a question of how much they win by. It's not a question of if they're a better team than Texas or Oregon or whomever else. I tell you what proves to be better is that the same wins that Oregon has, that Texas has, and all of that. You compare the stature of wins, it doesn't change the fact that this team would be 13-0, and that team is 12-1 or whatever they are in the case of the matter if they win. But the issue is Florida State fans have to realize one thing and one thing only. ESPN, whether they hate us or they're just doing it for clicks, I'm going to say this part. War Chant released this story so that they could get clicks. That's all this is about. Revenue. They need clicks because there's too many people coming up giving the same information, cheaper or free, and it's time to release something that nobody else was going to release.
Yep.
The protocol was known the day that man got hit on the football field that he was going to be in protocol for the remainder of the week.
It's common sense. You're going in protocol. I mean, it's just whether he was good to come out, he was going to be in protocol throughout the week. It's just part of it. And they threw some shit against the wall. Look, best if you're ever wondering and you're trying to figure out whether you should listen to somebody, don't listen to the Lion from Chronicles of Narnia for anything football. Y'all come to the Renegade Report or Spear Addicts. Y'all go to plantthespear.com, something like that. Man, we sure appreciate you calling, Chris.
George, one more thing before you let me go. I'll tell you what's comparable to the people that you're listening to. And James Coleman, which everybody should know who that is if I'm talking, and also because of what he's already done and who he is. But the case being is that we can tell who you listen to by what you say. So first and foremost, I need to give everybody just a quick rundown. When you see people that are doing the thing themselves, Plant the Spear, George with Renegade, CJ with Dope Talk, myself and James and Chip on Spear Addicts. You know what we all have in common? We actually love this university. We actually give a shit about telling you the truth and what actually matters, and also not telling what Coach Norvell and the rest of them don't want to be said. Not for the remainder of the fan base doesn't need to know, just the remainder of why the hell would you let the other team know to prepare for this quarterback in that case? Because otherwise they're not going to. So the ignorance that comes out of trying to get clicks, it lets you know who's selfish and who's not. With that, I hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your night, and go Noles.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming on again, man.
Thanks,
we couldn't agree more.
Yeah, man.
Man, he came on here and preached. I could not agree anymore. And also, this goes right along with what he said.
I wonder if we have the same person that we talked to, because it seems.
Well, y'all are both from Memphis, but Till Dog 12 comes in with the super chat, the $5 super chat. We really appreciate you, man. Again, Noles fans are just reading the press clippings too much and need to relax. Stop acting like you're scared so dang much. Well, we're not scared here at the Renegade Report. I know my guy Jesse Codger and his guy Michael over at plantthespear.com. They're not worried. I know Jen ain't worried. We're good to go. We got this shit, man. What do y'all want to talk about?
And by
y'all
the way, I was really
on?
upset that your co-host didn't come on. I loved his Christmas sweater. It's amazing.
I'll make sure to relay that.
You have
That's
to.
why I was asking you. I was like, man, you sure Mike's not coming? Jen's been on me about that Christmas sweater all week.
I loved it. I was like, oh my God, are they going to be on? Is he going to wear his Christmas sweater? Because I'm kind of a fan, obviously. I'm new to this, so I'm like a fan of all you guys. So whenever you guys come on, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, I appreciate you tuning in, and I want to get like one of those funky like Florida State sweaters or something. I got the stockings going on in the background.
Oh, I have some.
That's about as close as I get. But I think Chris does bring.
I'm actually wearing one. I think like a funky shirt.
Oh,
yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
Man.
See, look at that.
Oh, I love it. I gotta get something like that.
It's like a crop
anything in
top.
garnet and gold.
I love it. I love it.
I think Chris does bring up a good point, and I'll say first off, I think he brings up a good point when you talk about them prepping Brock Glenn. Like you have to understand, Tate, the entire season was one play away from being QB1. Now that's Brock Glenn. He is one play away from being QB1, whether Tate comes out of the protocol or not.
Regardless.
So regardless, you have to prep that guy. And now you're talking about he's either going to go into an ACC championship situation or potentially the playoffs, because Jordan's not coming back. So you have to make sure you're ready for all situations. So that is true. And I think he does bring up a good point when you talk about the media that you watch. You talk about guys like Chris and you and myself, and we do this out of a love for the game, for the team. We don't do this for the money. We don't do this for clicks. Of course, you want traffic on your site. That's how you grow, of course. But like, we would never do anything that would shame you in front of FSU fans or would do anything to harm the team or whatever. And I think it does when it comes from a place from love for what you do and not necessarily a job where if, I mean, I don't know those guys personally, so I can't say anything about them, but if Florida beat writers or whatever came calling with a bigger check, would they be over there next season? I don't know. I don't have any interest in any other team. So this is who I want to talk about. And I think that does show in your content. You know what I mean? I think from all of us, you are seeing a lot of these smaller outlets start to emerge because of the time and the effort. And, like guys like us, and I'm sure Chris as well, you go to work, you put in full-time hours, you come home and you do this. I saw you post the other day, like you did this till you fall asleep. And it's like, man, I put in more hours on this than I do my full-time job, but it's a passion project. So you just love it. And I think it shows in the content. And that's why we appreciate everybody who's watching this, who visits us, who does super chats. And those things really do make a difference because it's why we do it. It's for the love of this. And, tomorrow I'm going to be at Clutch in Charlotte with the Charlotte Seminole Club. I would love for people to come out and say, hey, because that's what it's all about, man. And I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate being a part of this.
No doubt, man. Words well spoken. Go ahead, Jen. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
No,
you
I
off.
was just going to say I'm such a fan, so it's weird for me, but,
Hey,
it is what it is.
This is only like year 2.5 or so for me. And when someone messaged me to ask what I was doing this weekend in Charlotte, they're like, me and my dad are longtime listeners. It blows my mind to even think about that. Like I was so nervous to show my face on YouTube forever. And like to think about that now, like it's insane, but I love it and it's fun. And hopefully, hopefully this is something that we're all doing full time in the future.
Yeah, it's
like you
weird
said,
for me. Yeah, it's weird for me. George reached out to me because I was on a show, I think, with Chris, right? And that's where it went. And I actually just got reached out to because a Miami fan liked my content, like I just like to troll people. I'm not in the news. I don't pretend to be. Do I have like some sort of connections? Sure. But it was just fun. So George reached out to me and then it just.
I'm not official media. Trust me. I tried to get media passes. They told me no. So they're keeping the little guy down. You got to be national media. And I like to be a little independent, but man, we talked about this before on our show. Like I can't sit up in the sterile press box and just watch Florida State. Like I know you're allowed to cuss on this show, but I can't repeat to you some of the chants that I was leading in our section when we played Miami in that home game. Something along the lines of Muck Miami, and like it was, I'm glad
we know what it is.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's fun because you get the unique perspective. Like you do all the footwork that the professionals do, but then you also bring a unique perspective, and that's what makes it so much fun.
Yeah, look, the sincerity comes through. Guys like Chris, me, you, Jen, all of us, we love Florida State football. We want to cover the sport as much as as best as we possibly can, bring you guys the absolute best information that we can. But look, to be able to continue to receive the best information that we can for you guys, we can't double cross Mike Norvell, or we can't, leak the recruit's date that he's going to, do his commitment, even though, it's already decided and stuff like that. It's just part of doing the right thing. And some people will take a chance and say, screw it. We're big enough that it doesn't matter. What are they going to do? Cut our credentials? And they'll run with the story a day earlier than they were supposed to, or, something like that. But we'll never do that. We want to do the best things we possibly can to help promote this university and everything that Mike Norvell and they're doing over there. And we have a blast doing it.
I might even blow some smoke to help Florida State out. Like,
absolutely.
Did y'all see Jordan walking around the facility today? I heard he's, you know what I mean? Like,
the number one propaganda wing right here.
So Jameis isn't going to suit up? So Jameis isn't going to, is that rumor wrong? Is that rumor wrong?
Winston is in the building.
I did see somebody I saw Jameis in some kind of get up. So maybe if we have to reach back, they can figure out some kind of number and name to put on the back of the jersey for him. We can get him out there, but
let's do it.
But I think we're good. Whether it's Block, whether it's Brock or Tate, I think we're good. And I think on that, we will let you guys get one more dance from Tate, and we will get out of here, guys.
I
what
have
do y'all
one more
think
thing
about
to
that?
say. I have one more thing to say. Because
Jen,
because Brock is from Memphis.
That's right.
If he starts, let's go 901. Get this done. I love ya. Let's do it.
Let's go 9 on 1.
And he's got that Memphis swag. He does. He really does. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm good about that.
I really don't think the moment is going to be too big for him. Like,
no, it's not.
And I hate to say this is not a dish at Tate, but he almost seems more poised in the moment than Tate does at times. And I think maybe that's that kind of free will as a freshman. But You know, George, did you give I don't know, you guys probably already did a score prediction or whatnot.
No, we haven't.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up before we get out of here. We have not done a prediction. All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll tell you
Eugene,
what, I'll stall for you guys
All
so
right.
you can think about it for a minute because I had a little bit
These
of
people are going to be mad at me. I didn't even just totally was about to get out of here without the damn prediction. We got a prediction coming for you guys.
Came in overtime
you
and saved the thing.
So, yeah, y'all do y'all's prediction, and I'm going to check out this call.
All right, man. So, like, here's the thing when we talk about Louisville.
How's it going? You got the Renegade report.
Oh, you're on.
I definitely understand where Chris is coming from. Louisville is an above average team. I wouldn't say they're good. I wouldn't say they're great. When you look at their schedule, you know, they beat a 6-6 Georgia Tech, a 2-9 Murray State, a 3-9 Indiana team, a 6-6 Boston College team. They did beat NC State, who was 9-3, but they swapped quarterbacks after that because their offense wasn't doing anything. Then they beat Notre Dame. All's going good. Then they lose to a 3-9 Pitt team. They beat 7-5 Duke, but that was with a injured Riley Leonard and then a re-injured Riley Leonard. So they almost had no offense in that one. Now they killed Virginia Tech. Fair enough. Virginia Tech's pretty piss poor away from home. Struggled against a UVA team who's 3-9, beat Miami who's 7-5. TVD was in that game. They made a quarterback swap, and then they lost to 7-5 Kentucky. So again, they really don't have any great wins besides that Notre Dame one. And when I look at this team, when you look at some advanced metrics, which adjust for opponent and pace of play, their offense ranks 27th. Florida State's ranks 14th. Of course, I had a lot to do with Jordan Travis. The defense, Florida State is 8th. Louisville is 22nd. So I do feel like, you know, I feel like some people might be overlooking Louisville a little bit. That's just me personally, but I do think it has a lot to do when you compare who they have both played. So long story short, what I did to get my score prediction was I went and I looked at what both teams did because, you know, you're at the end of the season now, so you have a lot of data to use here. So I looked at what teams did against the best competition, any top 30 offenses or top 30 defenses that they played, how many points they score in road or neutral site games, and then how many they score against conference opponents. And I kind of averaged everything up. And the score that it gave me was 27-23. Actually, it gave me 26-23. Now, the reason that was a little bit significant, of course, I rounded because there were some decimals. That gave me a point total of 48.6. The over-under is 48.5. So, like, it was lockstep right there. So, I actually, and a lot of people are going to say that was with Tate. I think when you talk about Tate and you go back and you look at what he did against Louisville, Florida, and North Alabama, and you kind of average things out as a per quarter because, you know, he's only ever played one full game. They score on about 7.5 points per average per quarter with Tate in there. And that's about 30 points a game. So for me, I just kind of took all the numbers in because I like stats and numbers because they don't lie. They don't include your feelings or anything like that. And so I have Florida State in this one. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be rainy, a defensive battle. I'm taking Florida State to win 27-23. It still covers the spread. It's still tight. That's with either one at quarterback. And then, you know, that gets them in the playoffs, I think.
Yes, sir. We got a caller right here from Memphis. He wants to get a few takes off, and I think he's got something he wants to say hey to Jen and talk about Brock Glenn from the area. You there, buddy?
Are we on?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I am. Hey, guys. Listen, I'm Florida. I'm a native, born and raised and all that stuff, but I worked at Memphis 20 plus. Miss Jen, for 20 years plus, I lived within 2 blocks of Shelby Drive in Riverdale. So I got a bit of seniority on you, but lady, if you've been around a while up there, we've been neighbors. We probably crossed paths somewhere.
There ain't no telling, man.
I live in Germantown.
George, for all of you guys, I like how y'all do y'all show, okay? I like the way you present your information, the way you give me the chance to listen and make my own idea about what's going on instead of telling me what to think. That young man sitting up in the top right corner on the TV screen there, Jesse, I think. I noted what he said about the medical deal. I like the way he comes across. Stay with it, brother. See what you can do with it, okay?
I really appreciate that.
I just want to say thanks. And this is the first time I ever called into a show. I said, all these Memphis people, Chris, I started listening to Spear Addicts because of what he said about coming out of Memphis. You know, I've been back home for 20 plus, back down here.
From what I've seen, y'all got some good people that come out of Memphis, and I know there's some good people down here with us in Florida, man. We appreciate you calling in. Is it before we get you out of here? Is there anything in particular you was wondering about, or you just wanted to say thanks?
I just wanted to say thanks, and this. These guys, everybody talks on TV. James is a bit different. Coleman, he knows what I'm talking about. If you're a player and you're a ball player, when you walk out on that ball field, ain't nobody in the world going to beat you. Okay, and these guys have been trained. I'm impressed with what all the FSU coaches have done with these guys. Okay, and I'm impressed with the guys. Them boys ain't going to let nobody beat them, and they will do everything that they are supposed to do by the big guy. And how this whole thing is going, they might not make it to the top this year, but you will next year if they don't. Okay, but they gonna drive on that field. They're gonna make every one of us proud. So y'all just hang in there. We'll be at the ball game listing on the TV tomorrow night, right here in the middle of Walton County, and best of all you guys, and I'll look to hear y'all again. Okay?
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, and we will catch you next time on the call-in show.
Thank you,
man. That was just great to hear from a guy like that, man. He sure seemed like a good person. And, man, a lot of fun on this show. Mickey Mason has his prediction up there, 34-17 UL, and that brings me to my prediction. I would like to say 34-17. And sorry, I know I kind of missed yours there, Jesse, while we had to start screening calls around here. If you saw the last show, we had some pretty – so if I don't know who the caller is coming in right through, we got
You don't need a Dabo situation going on. You don't need Tyler from Spartanburg calling in.
I know you're into the medical field and stuff, but we had an anatomy lesson last time. We don't need it. But here's my prediction, guys. I think the offense isn't going to be anything flashy, but like we talked about, they're going to establish the run. Florida State, Mike Norvell, this group, they're not going to give up on it. Louisville maybe score some early. I could see a score like maybe even 13-10. Louisville going into half, worst case scenario. But once again, in the fourth quarter, Florida State dominates this ball game. They win it 10-0, 14-0 in the fourth quarter. And we ski a score somewhere along the lines of like 24-16 or something crazy like that. Some kind of weird 20.
Mine. Well, that's
okay,
not really
well, I'm
mine,
going 24-16. What do you got, Jen?
24-17.
24-17. Well, that's pretty close.
Yeah. I had 27-23. I know you were screening the call. I had 27-23. I think it's going to be a little bit close. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. It's going to be wet. Teams are going to have to settle in a little bit, especially with our young quarterback. But, man, I will say I think the difference in this game, and I think the caller, first off, thank you so much, because it's comments like that, man, that really make you want to keep going, that make you want to keep doing this. That's really, when you don't do this for money, that's what you do it for. And so I really appreciate that. But I will say he does bring up a good point, man. When you talk about Louisville, they went to Pitt and they didn't get it done. They had Kentucky come to their place. Rivalry. Everybody said, oh, that's a trap game for them or whatever, because they're already locked into the ACC championship, and they lost. Florida State went to Pitt without their two top wide receivers, found a way to win the ball game. Florida State went to the Swamp against a very similar caliber of team, the same trap game scenario, except they had a backup quarterback, and they got it done. They won. They covered. So I think it's going to be the defense. I think it's going to be the coaching, and Brahma's a daggone good coach. And I think you also have to watch the special teams play. That could be something too. Keon with a big return or something like that could be the difference in the game. But I really just think it comes down to Florida State finds a way to get it done week after week, and Louisville has not done that. So that's why I like the Noles in this one. I don't care if it's 3-2 and we win by a point. Man, just get the win, and I think they're going to do it.
And I think they'll still be in, even with that.
Facts.
It doesn't matter to me what happens. It does not.
Now, what I'm really thinking is Brock Glenn. Look, hey, I'm not saying this is actually going to happen, so I'm kind of blowing smoke, but I'm calling my shot. Brock Glenn might come in tomorrow and throw for 200, rush for another 100, and the whole world is left with their jaw hanging because Florida State's about to go pull a 2014 Ohio State and go win a national championship with a third-string quarterback. I mean, you never know.
Anything's will zig. He'll zig when you think he's about to zag. Exactly. Going out in 2022, everybody thought it was going to be us running the ball in the zone read game with Jordan Travis. And what'd he do? He came around throwing that bitch around like Tom Brady.
I have a hot take.
Before we get to this question, let's let Jen get her hot take off. What do you got, Jen?
Just one quick second. I even think if Florida State wins against Louisville and if Oregon beats Washington, Florida State moves to 3 with the committee.
Oh, yeah. That's not a hot take at all. Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, well, some people are not saying that. I absolutely see that. And people are going to be surprised when it happens because you're not putting Oregon, who's only, I mean, I guess their only win would be Washington, right? But they've beaten nobody and they've lost. So again, no.
Yeah,
It's just not going to happen and people are going to be upset.
You're talking about the difference in playing a Michigan or a Georgia. I don't know. I might want to see Michigan first.
I will say real quick, George, Washington is currently up 10-0 with 3:46 left in the first. They just scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't have Washington, Oregon is going on right now. It's right.
Going on right now. Yep.
I think that's going to change. Washington really is good in the first half and most of their games.
Yeah, you're right. Just an update.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So one more question and we'll get out of here, guys. And in case you missed it, all three of us picked Florida State over Louisville. I was at 24-16. Jen had it 24-17. And Jesse had it, 27-24?
27-23.
27-23. So all three of us picked Florida State. And Zachary Gibbons with the question, if Brock Glenn does start, do you think he can handle the moment? And how would you change the offense if he starts? And we kind of talked about this throughout the show. Look, they may pare down the offense somewhat, but it's going to be Mike Norvell's offense. You might see maybe a little bit more of the zone read game with him than you would see with Tate, just to get him comfortable out there. But, just like Jesse just said a minute ago, you may see Brock Glenn come out there and throw it for 250 yards. You may see Tate Rodemaker come out there and come out in 5 wide and sling it. I think Brock Glenn has the moxie. If there's one thing you're worried about, it's not him getting out there and the moment being too big. It's just going to be more about him getting out there and executing and being able to execute enough plays to keep Louisville guessing. But no, I think we're all on accord that no matter which quarterback comes out there, Florida State's defense and run game is going to be what wins this football game. And Florida State comes away with the ACC championship, and we get to talk to you guys later on this week about what's next about the college football playoff. And also don't forget to catch me and Jen live Saturday. It'll be usually about 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the game over on the Voice of College Football YouTube channel. We'll do the post-game instant reaction and championship weekend reaction for all the other teams rolled into one, because this one will be late. It'll be around 10:45 Eastern, if I had to guess, or even maybe around 11, sometime like that Eastern. Jesse, is there something you wanted to plug before we get out of here?
Man, just if you're looking for something to watch tomorrow morning besides Kirk Herbstreit, come on game day for 3 hours and tell you why you don't deserve to play off or make the playoff. I'm probably planning on streaming our game preview show on our channel at around 10 a.m. tomorrow, so check that out. Of course, just plantthespear.com. Follow us on social media. We always have a good time over there, and then our YouTube channel as well. And, man, I'm excited for this game. Like I said earlier, I live so close to Charlotte that I drive past Bank of America Stadium. I can't tell you how many times a week at work, and I'm just like, I keep looking, and it's been a long time. You know what I mean? So it's been I was at 2014. It was cold and rainy then. I got a buddy on the way up to go to the game with me tomorrow. He was there in 2014. So we're bringing out all the good juju for this one tomorrow, because I just really want Florida State to get it done. I'm excited for them to be back in Charlotte. I'm going to be at the game. Maybe we'll have a post game if I can find a spot to do it afterwards. But if you guys are in Charlotte tomorrow, go to Clutch bar close to the stadium. Charlotte Seminole Club will be there. I'll be there. Come say hey. And George, I just appreciate you having me on, man. Congratulations on all the growth throughout the season and everything, man. You're killing it.
Appreciate it, man. Same for you, man. We just appreciate you joining us, and it's a good time as always. Jen, you got anything you want to let the folks know before we get out of here?
Not really. Just thank you again for coming on. I'm such a huge fan of your show. Please tell, I love his Christmas sweater. I need it in my life all the time. All the time.
I'm going to text him as soon as we get off. And I'm going to have to find one to maybe outdo it. Like, it's the one with some lights or something on it. So.
And tell him to follow me on Twitter, because he doesn't. So
I will.
I need that in my life too.
I'll get on that. I'm just ready to throw some L's down. It's like Miami. You get to throw the L down tomorrow. So
there you go. L's down, baby.
You guys make me laugh. Y'all made me laugh so much. Because honestly, that tweet that I put out with that little joke in there that you guys did in your show, I was like, that is the funniest thing ever. It was so funny with the Miami and Florida fans or homeless people looking at and asking you to rearrange the furniture or something. It was so funny.
Well, we will get into it, but for now, you guys watch Take Dance, and we will catch you on the next.